Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Monday, April 25th, Ian Cameron flying solo in the host's chair today, ready to break down, well, not much of an NHL card. It is one game and one game only, and it is about as uninspiring a game as you could ask for here in the final week of the regular season. Two teams playing for exercise, essentially, Philadelphia, Chicago. But it's a hockey game. It's an NHL regular season game. It's got a betting line. It's got a sides, totals. It's got props. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to see if we can make some money from this one game, albeit not the most glamorous game by any stretch of the imagination tonight in the NHL for this Monday, April the 25th. We'll also look back at the weekend, and we're going to start a lot of the show doing that. Of course, Andrew, Alex, Jimmy, they'll be back tomorrow. I mean, Andrew spent the weekend in Montreal. Of course, he attended the Habs and the Bruins game last night. He's on his way back home, I believe, today. Alex doesn't like the game tonight anyway, so I just said, take the day off. Jimmy's doing work stuff as usual. So we figured just me today, and we'll get everyone back in the saddle tomorrow for what will be a massive day here for the Ice Guys. Not only our daily show tomorrow on Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, where we will have a whopping 13 games on the Tuesday slate. Here we go again. You go from one game tonight to 13 games tomorrow. So that's just the way it goes right now. But you've got 13 NHL games tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. We will break them all down, me and the crew. And then, of course, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, we've got our final, our very, not our very final betcast, because we're going to have them throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs on Tuesdays, just like we did throughout the regular season. But tomorrow night will be our final regular season Ice Guys betcast, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Looking forward to that. And what a great Tuesday night. I mean, during our betcast tomorrow night, you look at the schedule and you look at the games that are in front of us. You've got the battle for first place in the Metro Division, Carolina and the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden. That should be a terrific hockey game. Edmonton and Pittsburgh, both playing for positioning. They're going head-to-head. That's a nice East versus West matchup. Florida versus Boston. Florida, I think, just one win away from clinching first place in the Atlantic Division. Boston, outside chance of tracking down Tampa Bay for third in the Atlantic, but not totally out of the realm of possibility yet. Calgary against Nashville, a game that obviously for Nashville, they're continuing to look to cement their playoff positioning as a wild card team. You've got St. Louis and Colorado. St. Louis is trying to keep pace with Minnesota for home ice in the first round and second place in the Central Division. And the biggest of all, perhaps, tomorrow night, just from a playoff implication standpoint, it doesn't get much bigger than this. It's certainly going to be win or your season's over for the Vegas Golden Knights as they travel to Dallas to take on the Dallas Stars in a game that Vegas has to win. That's as a team they've got to try to catch. And certainly after letting a point slip by the cracks last night against San Jose, it becomes even more important for Vegas tomorrow night. A huge, huge game that is. The Golden Knights and Stars will also be part of that Tuesday night slate tomorrow night and part of the betcast as well. So it is a exciting card. It's chock full of meaningful matchups, and we're looking forward to it. So that betcast tomorrow night is going to be lit, as they say. Looking forward to that tomorrow night for sure. All right, let's look back at specifically yesterday because it was a huge card, and then we'll get into Flyers, Blackhawks, and we will wrap it up. This will be a short show. We'll just talk about the games where there was really something to talk about. We'll start with Carolina and the Islanders. 5-2 win for Carolina, but that's not the story. The story is Antti Raanta getting injured when this team is already without Frederik Andersen, their number one goalie. And the one thing I've learned about these two goaltenders over my time watching the NHL and watching them over the last couple of years is that these two do not heal quickly. They do not. Neither one. When they get hurt, they don't really get back into the lineup all that soon. And that's got to be a grave concern here for the Carolina Hurricanes moving forward. Right now, there's no update All we know is it's day-to-day lower body injury for Antti Raanta after that game Sunday against the Islanders. Pyotr Kochetkov had to come in and replace him, and actually did a fairly decent job when you think about it in that game. Held the fort, only gave up the one goal and allowed Carolina to get the victory in that game. But now you are really staring at the possibility of both Frederik Andersen and Antti Raanta not being ready for a game one in the first round next week. And that is definitely something that is concerning for Carolina. I don't care how much confidence and trust they have in this youngster, Kochetkov, but nevertheless, you're going to throw him into, obviously, throw him right into the fire, essentially, if he's going to have to start game one of a playoff series for the Hurricanes next week. But we're jumping the gun a little bit saying that. Let's see how the week progresses. We'll see how Frederik Andersen progresses from his injury. The latest update on him is really there is no update. They said back on April 18th, which was a week ago today, that he'd be out at least a week and then he'd be reevaluated. So this is exactly 1 week from that time when they'd said he'd be out a week and be reevaluated. So today's the day. He's going to be checked out again, and we're going to probably know more about Frederik Andersen's status moving forward. And again, as for Antti Raanta, it's looking right now like it's day-to-day for him. So very, very worrisome news in between the pipes right now for Carolina. We'll see what comes of that. But they beat the Islanders 5-2. Columbus with a rather surprising 5-2 win over the Edmonton Oilers. That's a disappointing setback for them. Not exactly the game Mikko Koskinen was hoping for. I mean, he's pretty much going to be the backup at playoff time to Mike Smith. It was pretty much set in stone anyway. But if there was one little opening, just a tiny little crack of an opening for Mikko Koskinen to show Jay Woodcroft and the Oilers that, hey, I'm pretty good too. Give me a shot here maybe to be the guy in the playoffs. Well, he didn't take advantage of it yesterday, and that's putting it mildly. Not a great game from him by any stretch of the imagination. They end up losing 5. The whole team was pretty poor, to be quite honest with you. Yesterday, it's unfair to put it all on the shoulders of Koskinen yesterday, but the whole team was just not really that sharp. An early start game, obviously, 11 a.m. local time, going on the road, lowly Columbus team, kind of sleepwalking, and look, paid the price for it. And congrats to Nick Blankenburg of the Columbus Blue Jackets, another one of those great Michigan Wolverine players from this past season that are now infiltrating their way into the National Hockey League here late in the regular season, along with the likes of Owen Power and the likes of Matt Beniers. And what a job by Blankenburg yesterday. 2 points, gets his first NHL goal as well for the Jackets. A very good outing for him, and a sign of someone that's going to be maybe someone that the Jackets long-term can have really help rehabilitate and stabilize this franchise moving forward and get it turned around. He'll probably be a big part in that. Because certainly he's been impressive here in his first 2 games with the Jackets. And from a player prop standpoint, we mentioned him. It was worth a look for a prop yesterday on Blankenburg, score a goal, and certainly to get a point. He did better than that. And certainly the last couple games we get with the Jackets here, the Nick Blankenburg props are definitely going to be once again on my radar. The Flyers, how about, I'll tell you what, on the bingo card of things that I expected to happen on the Sunday NHL slate yesterday, Martin Jones allowing just 1 goal to the Pittsburgh Penguins was not one of them. That was a very much a surprise yesterday, but give the Flyers credit. They beat Pittsburgh 4-1. And again, with this Pittsburgh team, they're in a spot where, positioning is still on the table for them in these remaining regular season games in terms of motivation, but how motivated are you to get the 3rd spot? You're still going to have to start the playoffs next week in game 1 on the road. It's just a matter of, do you want to play someone else? I don't know, instead of another opponent, but you look at it, they're 3rd in the Metro, and they actually remain 3rd in the Metro because Washington ends up only getting a point last night against Toronto in an overtime loss, or a shootout loss rather, to the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-3. Winnipeg 4-1 over Colorado. I didn't want to back either team, although if you would have told me in that game, because I mentioned on the show yesterday, the Avalanche are a bet against team. They are a fade for me the rest of the season. They have clearly, they've checked out when it comes to the regular season. They're looking forward to the playoffs now. That's become clear. losing now to Washington, to Seattle, to Edmonton, and now, of course, yesterday to Winnipeg. That's 4 losses in a row for the Avalanche. They just want to get this regular season the hell over with and get into the playoffs. So I'm not backing them, but I'll be honest, I had no interest yesterday backing Winnipeg, betting on Winnipeg either, with what I had seen from them down the stretch. And if you had asked me before the game, what would be the more surprising result, Colorado winning or Winnipeg winning, I obviously would have said Winnipeg winning. 4-1, which tells you just how little Colorado really cares right now about these last few games. I mean, they've been losing and looking pretty ordinary against Winnipegs and Seattles in some of these recent games. So the Avalanche certainly look like a team here that just they want to get this thing over with in the regular season. They obviously don't care about going into the playoffs playing well. They just want to get everybody rested, load management. There are a couple guys nicked and bruised and banged up that they're giving some rest to. Here down the stretch of the regular season. So, that's basically the focus more than it is winning games right now for the Avalanche. Tampa Bay, I guess they're awake. I guess they are locked back in. I think that's pretty clear these last 3 games. It started with the Toronto game Thursday night, a Leaf team that went into Tampa Bay and put it on the Lightning 6-2 in that game earlier this month. And we ended up seeing the Lightning get redemption, crush the Leafs in the rematch last week, and they carried that. And that was really the first sign of a pulse and a 60-minute effort from the Tampa Bay Lightning in probably a good handful of weeks since we had seen a thorough, complete, dominant 60-minute performance from Tampa Bay like we saw against Toronto. And sure enough, they followed that up with 2 more pretty strong 60-minute performances. 6-2 win over Nashville on Saturday, and then last night's 8-4 win over the Florida Panthers. Rough night for Spencer Knight in net. He ends up getting chased in that game, and the Lightning obviously put an 8 spot on the board. And boy, Nick Paul, who we talked about, bet this guy from a prop standpoint. 2 goals for him, including a shorty in the game last night against the Florida Panthers. And like I said, with this Tampa team, you could, load. You could bet Braden Point. You can bet Nikita Kucherov, bet Stamkos, Point, Palat, Killorn. You can bet those guys to, props and points and goals. I'm focusing more lately on Nick Paul and Ross Colton. Ross Colton was quiet on yesterday, but Saturday he was certainly great against Nashville. These are 2 guys that are going to be their new third line come playoff time. That third line that everybody was fretting coming into the playoff or coming into the season this year. That what would Tampa Bay do without, we know they're absolutely loaded in the top 6 forward group. We know that. Kucherov, Stamkos, Point, Palat, Killorn, Cirelli. I mean, that is a terrific top 6 right there. What were they going to do coming into this season? A salary cap strapped team. They couldn't bring back the third line, the entire third line from last year's Stanley Cup team, gone because they couldn't afford the money and they couldn't get under the cap and pay those guys. All of them gone. Barclay Goodrow, Blake Coleman, Yanni Gourde. And they were a terrific third line last year for the Tampa Bay Lightning in the playoffs. Hell, they were better at times than the top 2 lines in some of those playoff games last year for Tampa Bay. That's how strong they played for the Lightning. So what would the Lightning do how would they replace those guys was one of the biggest concerns for the Tampa Bay Lightning coming into the year. Well, with the way this third line for the Tampa Bay Lightning has played in these last few games, and really for the last, I would say, couple of weeks at the very least, Ross Colton, Nick Paul, and Corey Perry, worry no more about a third line that can be impactful. Worry no more about a third line that could be productive, be able to score, be able to chip in offensively for you. And we're definitely seeing that right now from this group. I mean, Colton, Paul, and Perry. All of a sudden, here we are late in the season, and John Cooper's found a third line potentially that could be just as damaging in the playoffs as the top 6 forward group could be. Because you look at the way, especially Paul and Colton have been rolling along right now for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Colton's just been absolute terror lately. The last 6 games, Colton has 7 points for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he has 2, 4, 5, 6 goals in the last 6 games as well. And he's already reached the 20-goal mark for the Lightning this year in just 22 goals in 76 games for the Lightning this year. And a lot of them have come down the stretch. And Nick Paul, who they got from Ottawa, at the trade deadline, he's been pretty damn good too. The 2-goal performance last night. He now has 6 points in the last 5 games for the Tampa Bay Lightning, 3 goals during that stretch. So, absolutely, the third line, they've got a third line again. That's bad news for Toronto, potentially in the first round, or whoever they play in the playoffs, because now they're not so concerned and not so worried anymore about how are we going to replace Goodrow, Gord, and Coleman from that team last year. And they have certainly been able to do that here lately with that third line producing and playing at a high level for the Lightning. And they beat Florida 8-4. So with Boston beating Montreal 5-3, by the way, phenomenal ceremony, classy, just extremely well done, as always, by the Montreal Canadiens. They never, ever mess it up when it comes to a pregame ceremony or when they're honoring somebody. Nobody does it better. Nobody in the National Hockey League than the Montreal Canadiens. Nobody. They are as good as it gets as far as honoring a past player, putting on a ceremony, and doing it the right way. And boy, did they ever do it the right way last night. It was chills down your spine watching it, the long 10-minute ovation, the honoring of Guy Lafleur, just everything top to bottom was great. Unfortunately for the Montreal Canadiens fans, you know what they should have said? Come on in, enjoy the ceremony, reflect on the legend that was Guy Lafleur and all he meant to the community, the organization, the franchise. And then they should have had someone come onto the ice, grab a mic, step onto the ice and say, all right, that's it. Nothing more to see here. You guys can go. Ceremony over. Nothing more to see here. That's it. Go on home. Nothing's going to happen now. Nothing did happen after that, other than a disgraceful performance for the most part by the Montreal Canadiens on a night where they were honoring one of the legendary and best players to ever don a Montreal Canadiens jersey. And all the Canadiens do is come out, honor the man by getting outshot 18-7 and falling in a 2-0 deficit in the opening period. Great job. Hell of a job. Couldn't have done it better myself. Couldn't have imagined you putting a better picture and a better portrayal of how to really, really show the Montreal Canadiens fans and the legend Guy Lafleur just how much it is to play for this Montreal Canadiens team, just how much it is valued and treasured. Can't imagine you putting a better example of that on the ice than that first period. Really. I mean, seriously. It was absolutely an awful first period. Now, were there some things that went against them? Yeah, the penalty shot was a joke. That was called a penalty shot for Eric Haula of the Boston Bruins. When Jack Edwards, the homer announcer of our lifetime in any sport, is saying that probably shouldn't have been a penalty shot, it's a bad call. All right, simple as that. And when you see it, obviously it was a terrible call. And then he fails to collect the puck at center ice. But the rule is, because he didn't touch the puck, he was allowed to regather it and then take the penalty shot. Whereas if he had nicked the puck with his stick at the time when he whiffed on it, like Brad Marchand did before in a shootout attempt, then they would have said he couldn't take the shot. So that's the way that worked. And then, of course, Boston, Boston kind of leaked oil in the third period, kind of hanging on, but a 4-3 win for the Bruins. I didn't like the way the Canadiens came out in that game, but nevertheless, Boston with the 5-3 win, they did add an empty netter late in that game to get the win. Minnesota with a 5-4 win against Nashville. What a hockey game this was. Outstanding. Game goes over the total. I like the over. Vito really liked it. Vito, that was his best bet. Congrats, Vito. Well done. He liked the over in this game as his best bet yesterday, and it got there. 5-4 Wild. An outstanding game. Back and forth it went. Had a little bit of a physical tenure to it as well. And, of course, Dmitry Kulikov with the overtime winner for the Wild. Joel Eriksson with a couple of goals for the Minnesota Wild. Another 2-point night for Kevin Fiala, who just can't be stopped. Goal and an assist for him in the victory. And Minnesota continues to roll along, sharpen up their game for the playoffs. Great game last night in Music City, and a 5-4 win for the Wild there. St. Louis spoiling Ryan Getzlaf's final home game in Anaheim. And really, Anaheim had no business winning that game. None. Zero. In fact, they were damn lucky they were up 2-0 after the first period. I was damn lucky as someone that took Anaheim first period full game money line split as best bet for the show to actually even cash one of them. And thankfully, I was able to cash the first period. And the 1-1 split means profit, small profit, because they were both at a plus price. So we'll take it. But yeah, they had no business winning that game. It was all John Gibson in the first period. Hell, they started the game getting outshot 8-0, in the first 6 minutes of that game. Blues are just a terror right now. I mean, they can come at you in waves offensively, and it felt all along, even when Anaheim was up 2-0 after the first, and Anaheim was up 2-0 early in the second period, that lead was not safe. I mean, St. Louis was swarming time and time again in the offensive zone, and it was only a matter of time before the Blues struck and ended up getting back in the game and probably taking the lead. And that's exactly what happened. The floodgates opened in the second period. Gibson actually had a great first period, but then a couple of those goals Gibson probably would have wanted to have back. So it was good Gibson and bad Gibson all within the same game. But Kyrou, Tarasenko, Barbashev, Falk, Buchnevich, Scandella, it was a very balanced offensive attack for the St. Louis Blues. Anaheim could barely muster anything in terms of offensive zone time or shots on St. Louis. But Ryan Getzlaf does get a point and does get on the score sheet, at least in his final home game, registering a great assist, a great pass on the Adam Henrique goal with just under 3 minutes to go in the third period. I was happy to see that. I bet Getzlaf to score a point, which was minus 130. However, we struck out, unfortunately, with the big one, the big kahuna, if you will, Ryan Getzlaf at plus 550 to score a goal. That one falls short, but hey, it was worth a shot in a game like that when you know they're probably going to try to get Getzlaf on the board in one way or another. Great ceremony. It was pretty cool seeing Teemu Solani involved, driving out on that little vehicle to the middle of the ice there. And yes, as RC1 tells us in the chat, yes, Ryan picked very well in terms of his wife, Paige Getzlaf. She's a beauty. No question about that. A great family. The whole family was there. Absolutely outstanding stuff. And Ryan Getzlaf plays his final home game, and Anaheim will end the season with 2 road games against San Jose and Dallas later this week. So an unbelievable 17-year career, all within one spot. Well done, Ryan Getzlaf. And the final game of last night, it's the game that we were all watching with bated breath. The Vegas Golden Knights, the San Jose Sharks, and just another snatching of defeat from the jaws of victory by the Vegas Golden Knights. I don't care what you have to do. You have to put that game in the win column when you're up 4-2 on home ice with 3 minutes to go in the third period against the lowly San Jose Sharks. I don't want to hear excuses. You've got to win. You've got to get 2 points there. Simple as that. And Vegas couldn't do it. Point shot beats Thompson, makes it 4-3 from, I believe it was Nieto. And then after that, of course, scramble, kind of a lucky break for San Jose and a bad one for Vegas. Bonino, got the 4-3 goal. And Timo Meier puts it in with I believe it was 6 seconds to go, and ties the game 4-4. And then San Jose, you just knew after they tied it, watch them win in overtime or a shootout. That's exactly what happened. San Jose with the shootout win, 5-4. And look, they got a point, but you know the difference it would be for Vegas to be 2 points behind Dallas with 3 games left, as opposed to 3 points. Enormous. Now they have to play Dallas. It's just an imperative game for Vegas, and it's probably imperative that they win that thing in regulation tomorrow night so that Dallas doesn't get any points. Now they put themselves in a spot where even if they beat Dallas in regulation tomorrow night in that big, big Titanic game, they're still 1 point behind Dallas and just 2 games left at that point. So that is how not demoralizing because they're still alive, but just what a huge blow it is to not get that second point that they absolutely should have gotten last night against San Jose. And would it kill Jack Eichel to do something in a big game for this franchise? Hell, they gave up a king's ransom for your ass. What the fuck have you done? They gave up draft picks. They gave up Peyton Krebs, who's turning into a nice little player for Buffalo. Alex Tuck, who was a backbone for your team at times during these last few years in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Backbone. Forechecking. Big goals. Timely goals. a little bit of a sandpaper element. The telescope was looking for Mr. Eichel last night. The telescope couldn't find him. 0 shots on goal and -2 going into the overtime period last night. That's a hell of a big game performance, isn't it, Jack? It's a great job. It's what they brought you here to do. -2 and 0. Zip. Zip. Zilch. Nada. Nothing. Shots on goal, nothing? In a game like that, you need 2 points, and you're going to do that. Seriously. He's not used to this kind of spotlight and stage. I get it. This is new to him. Buffalo, he never saw it. Buffalo, he never was in a position to play pressure-packed games, big games, important games, and in certain games of this magnitude, there are players that know how to elevate. There are players that know how to raise their game. There are players that know how to overcome it and thrive. I think of a guy that they're going to be playing tomorrow night for the Dallas Stars, Joe Pavelski. How good of a big game player has he been for San Jose for many years? For Dallas, even down the stretch. Do you know how many big goals Pavelski scored the last month for Dallas? I remember they were going to lose to the Toronto Maple Leafs in regulation. Who got a big deflection goal with 2 minutes to go in the third? Joe Pavelski, that's who. Who got them back in the game the other night against Seattle when things were starting to fall apart? Oh, yeah, Joe Pavelski. Jack Eichel's got to elevate here. And it's early. It's his first year with this team. Maybe it's going to come for him at some point. But his big game status, it's lame right now. It's very lame. And it's going to be up to him. You just got to find a way to produce. And look, this is the same shit that we're going to be saying going into these playoffs this year about Toronto's big duo, Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, who last year completely flamed out and had 1 goal between them. And it was Matthews that had it. Nothing from Marner in that first-round series against Montreal. Kind of like it's a referendum for them this year in the playoffs, them stepping up, them producing. I don't care how many chances you have. I don't care how many opportunities you have. You got to produce when you're big guns like that. But with Eichel last night, it wasn't even a matter of not producing. You can't produce when you don't have a fucking shot on goal. It's that simple. There's no way you're going to help your team offensively when you don't even put a goddamn puck on net for 60 minutes. Finally, in overtime, I think he had 2 shots. But obviously didn't score, and the rest is history. The Vegas Golden Knights end up losing in a shootout. So, and then the goaltending situation's a mess. We're hearing that I was hearing that Robin Lehner was going to back up Thompson and then opt to have season-ending surgery today. And now we're hearing maybe that's not the case. It's just absolutely, it's bizarre what's going on with this team. On the ice, off the ice, the decisions they've made, trying to trade away Evgeny Dadonov, who's actually been one of their better forwards ever since that trade got voided, which was ironic. I mean, it's just all kinds of things that this team has had to try to overcome and work on and overcome in order to try to make the playoffs. And it's just, unfortunately for them, an issue right now. The coaching's not been great, I got to admit. I mean, here's Peter Deboer in the third period here, and he's doing this with a lead. His team was still up, I believe, 3-2 at the time. Then they got the 4th goal, made it 4-2. Like, it's not like they were playing poorly. They were actually playing a pretty solid game last night through the first 2. He's juggling the lines with a lead. Who the hell does that? You have the lead in the hockey game. Why the hell are you juggling your forward lines? You save that for when you're not playing well, when things aren't going well at the moment. The old adage in the NHL is you don't change a winning lineup. Well, your team was playing a good hockey game, and then Pete Deboer just decides, he's going to be mad scientist here behind the bench, start, putting his lines in a blender. How did that work out? Blew a third period lead. I mean, it's everything. It's the front office who have disrespected countless players and coaches. It's the coach who Peter Deboer is a step down from Gerard Gallant. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. He can be good in the regular season, but we have seen that he has issues in postseasons. We have seen that he has there's a shelf life for him. We've seen him make some mistakes. We've seen him, just dick around with the goaltending back and forth. I mean, and many of these players. Mark Stone is fighting it right now. He's gripping the stick too tight. Mark Stone is having a tough time right now. Max Pacioretty missing nets last night. Now, he wasn't as bad. He was at least noticeable out there. But Jack Eichel's the, person non grata number one, as far as I'm concerned. In that kind of an important game, to have no shots on goal is a disgrace in 3 periods at home against San Jose, who, by the way, give up a lot of shots usually. Disgrace that is for Jack Eichel. Well, we'll see if Vegas, you got another chance to respond tomorrow night against Dallas, and we'll see how they handle it. So there we go. That was yesterday. Let's get into the one game tonight in NHL action. It is the Philadelphia Flyers taking on the Chicago Blackhawks. We've got Chicago minus 135 home favorites in this game. And the total right now, 6.5 across the board in this matchup. I would only look to Chicago here, even though they're minus 135. I don't trust Philadelphia after the kind of win they had yesterday. And it was a nice win. It really was. 4-1 over Pittsburgh. They outplayed Pittsburgh, 43-38. They were full marks for that win against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And they beat Montreal before that, 6-3. But that game obviously a game that's against a bitter rival. We know there's no love lost with the Flyers and with the Penguins. They played a real solid game here. They're going now back to Chicago. They're not rested. Chicago is rested. Chicago's coming off a very disappointing end to their road trip out west, losing 4-1 to both the Kings and the Sharks. Now they finish the season with back-to-back home games, and then they go to Buffalo on Friday to wrap up the season on the road. It's just from a spot perspective. Philadelphia, I don't trust them. I don't in this situation here. Now, do I want to lay $135 with Chicago? Probably not. Like I'm not going to probably do that either. But in these last couple home games for the year here in Chicago, I could see the Blackhawks wanting to at least send the home fans home happy. And these are things you look at here in the final week of the regular season for teams that are out of the playoffs. The final homestand, and especially the final home game, which for Chicago will be Wednesday night against Vegas as opposed to tonight. But there is usually a little bit of an incentive and an onus. Hey, it's been a tough season. We're not going to the playoffs, but hey, it's our last 1 or 2 home games. Let's go out there and try to get a W. It's just common conventional thinking, when you're talking about handicapping late season NHL hockey. No question about that. So I think Chicago's in a good spot, but sometimes with these teams in good spots, or bad teams, I should say, in good spots, doesn't work out. Montreal was in a good spot last night. Guy Lafleur night, still lost. Anaheim, honoring Ryan Getzlaf, final home game, still lost. So the bad teams in good spots, it doesn't always pay off for you, but I think there's reasons to like Chicago. I lean that way. I don't think I'll be betting it from a side perspective. The only thing I'll be betting side and total is a small over bet, 6.5. My thinking here. It is just 2 teams out of the playoffs, 2 teams that have been giving up goals for the most part. Not so much Philly yesterday. That 1 save or 37 save performance by Martin Jones was on 38 shots was definitely unexpected. But I'm not so sure I trust the Philadelphia Flyers to have that same kind of defensive effort tonight. And it looks like the young kid is probably going to be in net for Philly tonight, Felix Sandstrom, who is 0-2 with a 3.3 goals against average, .915 save percentage in his appearances this year with the Flyers. So it's not like he's got brimming confidence right now for this team. Kevin Lankinen confirmed in net, by the way, for the Blackhawks going into this game. So the over 6.5 for a small bet. Other than that, this is a game that I'm looking more toward maybe a couple of props here in this game. And I would look for value. rather than the usual suspects. Like for Philly, you can bet Lawton and Hayes and Konechny and JVR and Farabee and Bobby. Bobby Brink might be the one in the top 6 that, might be worth a look. He had 2 points against Montreal. No points yesterday against Pittsburgh, but he might be worth a look. I'd target this third line for the Philadelphia Flyers. Noah Cates, Morgan Frost, and Owen Tippett have been on their third line. Noah Cates had 3 points yesterday, 2 goals and an assist in the victory against Pittsburgh. He had an assist in the game against Montreal before that. Against Buffalo, he had a goal and an assist, 2 points, and an assist in the first of the 2 games against Buffalo. So in his last 5 games, Noah Cates, the young left winger, 23 years old for the Flyers, he has 7 points in the last 5 games for the Philadelphia Flyers. 7 points, 3 goals in those games. So Noah Cates, great prop choice, in my opinion. You want value, you want legit value, and a guy that's producing on the third line, which means you're going to get great value. Noah Cates is your guy. Morgan Frost has always had that there's always been that hope for Philadelphia that this guy was going to become a good goal scorer for them. They've obviously had to wait longer for him to maybe percolate and get going than maybe they thought, but they always knew this guy had offensive upside. Morgan Frost has now scored in back-to-back games for the Flyers against Montreal and Pittsburgh, and he has 3 points in the last 2 games combined. Occupancy, you're right. This looks like line of the future here for the Philadelphia Flyers. Cates with Frost and with Tippett for this group. And Owen Tippett, the other member of this group, he had a point yesterday. Not so much offensively he's been producing. He only has 2 points the last 5 games, but Cates and Frost in particular for the Philadelphia Flyers, they have been really good. Those are definitely my prop targets for the Philadelphia Flyers tonight. No question about that. Noah Cates, Morgan Frost, and also Owen Tippett here for this group. So keep your eyes out on that. These guys might be a little bit more difficult to find in certain, especially with their points props, but definitely when it comes to goals, you can get Noah Cates, for instance, plus 370, plus 400 to score a goal tonight. Morgan Frost over plus 400. Like, how about that? You want value personified right there. I just gave you stats that these guys are lighting the lamp right now. Both of them, Noah Cates and Morgan Frost for the Philadelphia Flyers. And look at the prices you can get for them to score goals tonight. And crazy. Plus 340, plus 370, plus 400, plus 3 in those ranges for both Noah Cates and Morgan Frost. And if you look elsewhere, you can actually get Frost in some spots over plus 400 to score a goal tonight. That's pretty crazy. So those are absolutely outstanding goal scorer prop value. And there's Mikey with the stats. In April, Cates has 5, Konechny has 5, Frost has 3. So these are guys that have are among some of their better goal scorers lately for the Flyers, and you can get prices like that. So tremendous value here with these Flyers. Those are the better bets. Never mind the side and the total so much. Look toward these props. I think they are good for Philly. As for Chicago, from a prop standpoint, going into this game tonight, it's a little bit more difficult to find the value with them because it seems like it's the same core group of players that have to do the scoring for them on a regular basis for the Blackhawks. And not only that, but they've only scored 2 goals in the last 2 games combined. So it's not like they've been lighting the lamp. But, this kind of feels like the Arizona game a little bit where we can see this team maybe get their offense going a little bit. You saw Kubalik is definitely, I've talked about this a lot for him, with him, the fact that he got benched for a few games. And really ever since then, you've seen him kind of step up lately offensively for the Blackhawks. So a dominant Kubalik look is not bad, in my opinion, for the Blackhawks. As far in terms of a prop tonight, we'll see let me see what their line combos are here tonight for Chicago. It's looking like DeBrincat, Stroman, Kane, Kubalik, Taves, and Johnson. So not really too much turnover, I should say, or changes in the lines. But I do want to point out Captain Serious here, Jonathan Taves. He has 3 points in the last 3 games, and actually 4 points in the last 4 games. And going back further, he has 6 points in the last 8 games for the Chicago Blackhawks. So Jonathan Taves has stepped it up a little bit. DeBrincat and Kane, it goes without saying, they have a good chance every night to produce for the Blackhawks. Dylan Strome's kind of cooled off. I'd maybe look to stay away from him tonight. Anyone on the third line that maybe could chip in? I always think Philip Kurashev is capable of being a really good offensive player for this team, and we just haven't seen it on a consistent basis. That being said, he's playing on the third line center spot. He has had 4 shots on goal the last 3 games. It kind of feels like he might be due to find the back of the net at some point. So if you want to go bargain hunting here for Chicago, Philip Kurashev, who's going to be centering the third line for them tonight in this game, that might be someone to consider. He's a mammoth plus 550 in some spots to score a goal tonight for the Blackhawks. It's a huge, huge price, but definitely something to consider. No question about that going into this game. I still think that's worth a look considering he's getting the chances. We just haven't seen him put it in the net so far. So there you go. There's a few props that I'm looking at. Bobby Brink for Philly to collect a point, maybe to score a goal, but more so to get a point, which is plus 110, is probably something I'll be looking at as well. He has been noticeable, more so from a playmaking standpoint for the Philadelphia Flyers. So there you go. A bunch of props that I'll be dabbling in here tonight with this lone game on the Monday NHL card, the Flyers and Blackhawks. All right. That is going to be the Monday show. That's a wrap. We will best bet in just a second. Before we do that, though, a reminder, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $1 on any NHL team, get $150 in free bets if they win. DraftKings Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet. You can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings daily fantasy hockey contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team. Get $150 in free bets if they win. That's promo code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Must be 21 years of age or older. Must reside in a DraftKings Sportsbook state. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Sign up for an account and use the promo code THPN. All right, best bets here to wrap it up. Obviously, we've just got the one game, and by default, it has to be the over. 6.5 minus 110. Even though I'm lukewarm on the over, I like it. I don't love it. It's only one game. It's the only thing we can go in this one. So Flyers, Blackhawks over 6.5 for my best bet for the one and only NHL game on the Monday slate tonight. And like I mentioned with the props, I'll reiterate them. For Chicago, Dominic Kubalik, Philip Kurashev, if you want to go for some value, maybe a little bit on Jonathan Taves. I wouldn't say no on Kane and DeBrincat, but you don't get as much value with them. And for Philadelphia, I really think there's good value with all 3 members of that third line: Noah Cates, Morgan Frost, and Owen Tippett. There you go. All right, that'll wrap it up for this edition of the Ice Guys. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. Hit the like button on the way out if you haven't done so already. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Monday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will be back tomorrow for a massive Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, our daily show to break down the 13-game NHL slate, and then the live betcast, our final one for the regular season, tomorrow night on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. DM me if you want a link to join us on the betcast tomorrow night, and we'll make sure we get you on the betcast with us. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the games and good luck, and we will talk to you again tomorrow on Tuesday for another edition of the Ice Guys presented by the Hockey Podcast Network.